Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our fourth session on Surah 45, Al-Jathiya, kneeling down in English translation. We have been looking at the surah, studying the surah with Dr. Yamina, and we're around verse 13. So we just are transitioning. Sorry. We're just transitioning from verse 13 into verse 14, and we have, and really again, inshallah, very interesting set of verses. May it be guidance and healing for us all. Is there anybody who wants to share anything from last class? I was looking over the passages that we looked at so far, and it's really interesting that the Quran starts with the surah starts with talking about signs and messages of God embedded in the creation, in the heavens and the earth, and in our inner being, and then turns into talking about consequences of turning away from the signs. And we talked about how it was a very strong language there, that there's a lot of suffering and pain involved in turning away from the signs. And one of the things that stayed with me is that this was an appropriate consequence, and it wasn't just an arbitrary punishment. It was trying to explain, the verse is explaining to us how in the nature of turning away from the signs of God, in the nature of rejecting the indications to our Creator throughout the universe and within our nature, there is a lot of suffering for human being. And then after that, from verse 12 onwards, the surah switched to talk about nature again, signs of God, indications to the divine in nature, and then it will inshallah also have an interesting turn into today's verses, starting from verse 14. So I guess without further delay, I'll turn to Dr. Yamina to lead us into tonight's session. And as usual, we're welcome to join in with our comments and questions, and there will be a more formal Q&A at the end as well. Also, our new practice is to try to share what we take from today's lesson, our takeaway lessons, if you will, at the end of the session. So try to note things to share at the end, inshallah. Okay, so I turn to Sister Yamina. Jazakallah khair. Sister Yamina.
Yes, sister.
Yeah, I realized I've been talking and I was muted, so shall I say that over again? Or shall we just turn to you?
I don't know what you said, so.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, so what I was saying is that I was asking if anybody wanted to share anything from last class, and I was also sharing that looking over the verses that we have studied so far, we are at verse 14 now. It has been a very interesting kind of journey, because when I look back, it's the surah started with the signs of God in nature, around us and within us. And then it turned to talk about the consequences of turning away from these messages embedded in the universe and brought by the prophets. And we talked about how the language was so strong there, painful suffering, grievous suffering. And then one of the things that stayed with me from that discussion was that was an appropriate, even compassionate this course because it was warning us to the content of what we are opting for. So out of compassion and mercy, that the Creator is saying, if you turn away from the science of God, this is what you're signing up for. Just know what you're signing up for. And that was a helpful discussion. So then we turn the verse. So we're at Surah 45, and then we came to verse 12. It again started to talk about signs of God all around us, in the sea and in the earth, in the rain, and so on. Now, today we'll continue from verse 14 onwards, and it's again an interesting turn from having covered the signs of God and talked about the consequences of turning away from signs of God. The verse now then starts talking about life after death and forgiveness, which is very interesting. So I'll pause there, and unless there's anybody who wants to share anything.
Yes, can I share? Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Asma. Can I share a little bit? I just went back and wasn't present last time, but tried to catch up with the discussion was very deep regarding the ayats, and I did some contemplation. And the things, I mean, just a few points that I was trying to understand. That first of all, Sister Yamina mentioned that, the ayats are messages from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything is an ayat. So I was wondering, these first 3-4 verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, li'ayatil mu'minun, and then yuqinun and yaqilun. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, He's ascribing these attributes to mu'minin, and yuqinun and yaqilun. So these ayats, they are ayats too, but they are describing the qualities of mu'min that they think about. So I came to the conclusion that the most important thing, key, is contemplation. And that is what the believers do. And that is what the non-believers are lacking, And in this rat race that we are caught up with so many things. We hardly get any time to contemplation. And if we contemplate, then it will make a huge difference. And the thing which struck me, I was, for the last 2 halqas that we studied, there was a description of ayats, and all of a sudden there was a punishment. There was a serious shift to punishment. So that was very scary for me, because just not contemplating and not using our akhal on these ayats would be translated into a crime on the day of judgment, because this is what we are. The human beings have been given the intellect, and if we don't use that intellect beyond the ayats and beyond the universe and within ourselves, if we don't figure that out, then it's considered a crime, and the punishment fits the crime on the day of judgment, and it becomes translated into hellfire, which is very scary. So it's not a small matter that we don't think and we don't contemplate. I think we should all encourage, even our Muslims and everybody, to just slow down the pace of life and think on Quran, because it's really not listening to the ayats and not seriously thinking about them and working on them would be a serious thing.
And also, like, bringing back to what we have discussed, also that the fire and the punishment in Day of Judgment is noted in the Quran to highlight the nature of what we are doing now. So it is actually suffering from now onward. It's not like we are having a good time when we turn away from the signs of God. We are actually putting ourselves, our spirit and our hearts in pain. We may be numbing ourselves to feel that pain, but at the end of the day, it is actually very painful. So live in a world without signs of God by rejecting the signs of God. And the emphasis there was in verse 9. They know the ayat, the signs, and they turn away. So knowing and turning away, that's a profound pain. And in the day of judgment, it becomes just more transparent, so we don't escape that pain. We can't numb that pain anymore. So,
yeah. And the other thing is this, verse 7. I was just gonna come saying that people criticize Islam that we have such the description of hell and all that is pretty harsh. But I think it is better to know the truth before than to be and be miserable. It's fine, but not to know the truth on the day of judgment is horrible. So it is better to know the truth now, even though it's may make you feel very scared or miserable. But I think it was worth it. So I'll just mute myself.
Yeah,
as well as this, I mean, what Isra was saying, I would like to emphasize on this. So if I read that verse 7, for example, woe unto every sinful self-deceiver, then I read this not as some kind of day of judgment in the future, but I usually read this as a description of what happens now. So the hell that is described is the state that I am in when I am in something that feels like hell. And so this state is usually the state where I'm not aware of God, or where I'm feeling lonely or hopeless or abundant or any kind of stuff. But these feelings, this is what is meant to me when it's talking about hell and self-deceiver. So self-deceiver, that's me. That's me in all these moments every day when I'm doing something like this. So with this verse, so we read these verses here in our local study group, and I like that because then I can kind of reread again and think twice, and that's just very good. So and this, so what all these Quran verses are for me, it's an invitation to listen to your inner voice. So it's not only an intellectual thing to kind of think about it, but it's really also this to kind of get a little bit more silent and listen to that inner voice that tells you whether you are on the right track or whether you are on the wrong track, whether you are in hell state or whether you are in state of abundance and being sustained and so on. And then these verses become compassionate, because then they are the ones that really call you back when you are in that hell state. And then, so this is a kind of a more general statement, like so with the verse like, woe unto every sinful self-deceiver, or the verse that Isra was reading, that, so with these verses I'm fine. 8, right? That was, if you hear the message and then you behave like you don't hear them and you persist in some kind of arrogant behavior. So that means like, I can solve my problems. So in the good way and in the bad way. I am the one who has to make sure that I have an income. I am the one who has to make sure that people love me. So whenever I'm in this arrogant state, then I'm suffering, or if not in that moment, then in the next moment. The verse that I couldn't really relate to was that verse 9, that so when you hear of the message, and this is coming with a question now, so when I'm hearing of the message, then I make them a target of my mockery. And I couldn't really relate to this, and my question is more like, does it mean that I have something to investigate, or does it mean this verse is just kind of less important for me at this moment? But it's not really, doesn't even have to be answered right now. I guess it will become clear over time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jazakallah khair, Andrea, for sharing. And I guess I'll turn the microphone to Sister Yamina, and she can do as she deems fit. She may come back to verse 9 or continue from where we left off and come back to it as she likes. But thank you very much, and Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I just wanted to add something when Sister Esma was saying that contemplation is very important. It is. Tafakkur is very, very important. And it is, we're invited and encouraged to reflect on the ayat again and again in the Quran. Together with that, it's how we reflect. We are taught in the Quran how to reflect. So first step, we decide to reflect, and then once we make that intention, now we say, okay, I'll reflect, but how do I reflect? And inshallah, then we feel the need for the guidance of the Quran even more. When it comes to verse ayah 9, when someone becomes aware of our ayat, he makes them a target of mockery, he mocks them. I think we've said that it can be understood that rejecting and mocking and ridiculing the messages, but it can also be understood, there are stages, as I don't take them seriously. So I'm not outwardly belittling the message, but it does not have a place in my life. I hear it, and even as Isra emphasized, alima, it says, وَإِذَا عَلِمَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا شَيْئًا. So someone does actually get something. It's not like he doesn't know what the ayats are about. Meaning the ayat of the Quran and the ayat in the creation, in the way they are explained in the Quran. So the ayat in creation also as divine communication, as a divine address. So if I don't take them seriously, or if I totally ignore them, then I may not be ridiculing them directly, but I'm not taking them seriously. It means I don't care. So there are maybe like degrees to how much the ayah, each ayah applies to us, or how we interpret it. So we did stop at ayah 13, and inshallah, in ayah 12 and 13, we were told that God has put at our service the sea and the ships that sails in it, so that we may be, and everything that we benefit from the sea, the products of the sea, and the fact that ships can travel through sea, all the commerce and everything, and so that we may be grateful. لعلكم تشكرون. And in ayah 13, we were also told that everything that is in the heavens and on earth has been put at our service. And it says, behold, there are ayats indeed for people who reflect. The fact that everything has been put at our service is for us to be grateful and to contemplate. And we can only be grateful to the extent that we stop and contemplate and understand the messages within those ayat, those creative activity. In ayah 14, we are told, tell all who have believed that, tell all those who have believed to forgive those who do not hope for the coming of the days of God, since it is for Him alone to requite people for whatever they may have earned. قل للذين آمنوا يغفروا للذين لا يرجون أيام الله ليجزي قوما بما كانوا يكسبون. So tell those who have believed to forgive those who do not hope for the coming of the days of God. And it says, since it's God alone who requites people for whatever they may have earned. And here, what are the days of God? Days of God has been understood as the day of resurrection, the day of judgment, also the day of death. But it's important. It means important moments, and usually moments that we are not looking forward usually to. Moments where, like the day of judgment, will be accounted for our actions. It has been understood in different ways, actually, but let's take it as meaning, like someone, Mujahid, one of the early commentators, لا يرجون أيام الله, those who do not hope for the days of God, or those who do not believe, do not expect the days of God. He understood it as they do not appreciate God's favors. But we'll go with the more literal meaning. It means those who do not fear that a day will come when they will be called to account for their actions. And the same fearlessness, because they have no fear of that day. Either they don't know about it, they don't want to hear about it, or for us Muslims, we know about it and maybe we even think that we believe in it, but when we lack that certainty, we end up living our life as though there is no akhirah. So it means we don't have that apprehension. We're not getting ready. We don't have that. It just doesn't exist in our. So that can make people bold and stubborn and act in, let's say, immoral ways, because there is. We forget that we'll be called to account for our action. Anything that no one sees, we think it's okay. Or human being may think it's okay. If there is no consequence right now, then it looks like it's okay. So here it says forgive. So tell those who believe to forgive those who do not believe in, let's say for the moment, the last day. So when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind is forgive them what? Most commentators on the Quran, they said that forgive the disbelievers the harm which they have caused them. Some said the believer should forgive the excesses of the wicked, and God will reward them for their patience and forbearance. And some said that the believers should forgive these people because it is God himself who will punish them. It's not up to us. I'll go back, I'll share with you what I understand from this. It doesn't mean that these interpretations are not valid, but I think there is more than this to the forgiving. It's not only about I I forgive you now, that will be being patient, maybe. I forgive you because God will requite you. Well, God will, in any case, inshallah. We're hoping, I believe that there will be justice for the good. Those who had good intention and made mistakes, there will be justice and compassion. But those who willingly harmed others, there will be justice. And we have a need for that justice. But apart from that, there is something even more than this. First, since it's not specified exactly what it is we are forgiving for, it can be understood as personally we're being harmed, or as collective harm, something not inflicted on me directly or personally. There are so many things, especially now we realize more and more how everything is interconnected. If someone is spoiling nature, for instance, it seems like I can do whatever I want, but actually everything is interconnected and we're all being affected by that. For instance, a very simple example. The word forgive here is, if we are in the position to forgive, it means we are not necessarily in the position where we are unable to retaliate, unable to take our rights back. So what do? We are asked to be patient. But here it's saying forgive. So either we are unable, but still we forgive, or we are able, like the believers are able to take their rights back, but they are asked to refrain from retaliating on people who transgress their rights or the rights of other beings. And the transgressors transgress because they do not fear God's judgment. They think, as long as I can do it here, as long as I'm powerful enough, there is only this world. No judgment, nothing. So yes, the human conscience says, doesn't like it, this is not good. But if we don't listen to it enough, at the end, that inner voice becomes like very faint, we'll hear it like from very far away. It's an exercise. The more we listen to that inner guidance and inner voice that we call conscious, the more we will be attuned to it. But if we're not, if someone has doesn't have a good intention and could repeatedly ignores that inner voice, afterwards it becomes easier and easier to be wicked and to do evil and to harm others. And in the beginning, it's like the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam. He says, okay, this time we will kill our brother. That's how they thought. And afterwards we will be good. That's how it starts. And then if it carries on again and again, then there is a point where there is no return because of our repeated choices. So here it's about who are the ones who forgive? Those لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who have believed. So Iman, belief in the last day of judgment, gives a new perspective to the believer. There is the perspective that there will be justice one day. So first you calm down. This is general. All believers, you are not as angry if your rights are transgressed, if you are the victim of injustice. What is more important than this, though, and what we've learned, like in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, and what we've been told at the beginning of this surah, is that everything is an ayah. That means that whatever is happening by divine will. Yes, the other person is committing injustice. Yes, the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam decided to harm him, but the whole thing was happening within divine will. And so it's happening with wisdom for a purpose much bigger than this transient life, much bigger than that particular event. And so the believer interacts with the ayat in her life, and therefore she sees them as coming from God with messages from the unseen, messages about God, about akhirah, about haqq. So Yusuf alayhi salam, even when you don't know exactly the meaning of what's going on in that particular event, like when he was thrown into the well by his brothers, he still trusts. He trusts because he believes, because he has certainty. He has certainty that whatever happens by divine will, and if God wills it, then it is happening for a purpose. It means there is hikmah, there is wisdom, there is compassion. It's not happening in vain. This is very important. The fact that the believer interacts with the world as ayat. So that event is not just someone hurting me, therefore I'm getting mad. How can this happen to me? The believer stops, and well, the believer, like the prophets, they don't even, they come to a point where they don't even have to pause, because immediately that's how they perceive the world. They perceive it as something coming to me from God, because they don't live at the level, at the maqam of at the level of the ego. They don't live from the ego, but from the soul, from the ruh. And so the perspective is totally different. And therefore, the believer sees whatever is going on, especially in terms of there is something to be forgiven, it means something harmful, some injustice, as coming from God with messages. They are ayat, they bear messages from the unseen. And so the believer's interaction with people who do not believe in akhirah is going to be different than other people interacting with each other. So there is no, if you remember Yusuf alayhi salam, there is no anger. All the time he was in the prison, he was not thinking and rethinking what they did to me. And so when he saw them, the first thing was not telling them what happened. Although he is not naive, it's not because he thinks it's okay. It's not about them. It's about him with his Rabb. And within, because he had that stand, he lived in that ihsan, that awareness that everything is coming from God and reflecting the divine name. He could see the wajhullah, the face of God in all those events. He had no resentment, no frustration, no anger. So it was easy to forgive, and easy when he saw them to act, to respond to them, interact with them with hikmah, with wisdom, instead of all those years being angry at them and at the people who put him in jail later. He could have been angry all his life and never learned any wisdom, and his life would have been wasted. He would not have fulfilled the purpose of his life. So the fact that everything is an ayah is very important, because that's the way. The other way is like, I have to remember and convince myself, okay, there will be one day, there will be justice, so calm down now. It's very difficult, because One day there will be justice. I don't feel it now, but when I interact with everything as an ayah, I feel the justice right now. Yes, that person is still unjust, but I may have to defend myself. I may have to respond in a way, but I won't respond from fear and anger, but with wisdom, with compassion, with what's the best for everyone right now, for the greater good. So the believers, they engage others and those situations not as being on their way, not as obstacles, not as why did this happen, it should not have happened. That's not surrendering to what God decreed. The believer is a surrenderer. He is a Muslim. He surrenders to whatever. He accepts it. Accepts it does not mean that I condone it, that I say it's good. I may not agree. I don't agree with how the other people acted, but it doesn't justify me to act in the same way. I respond in a way that is fitting for the believer. So the believer sees those events not as obstacles, not on their way, but in their way. They've been put there for a reason, for a purpose. They are part of God's wisdom and compassion, and we don't always understand that. But if we contemplate on the ayat, on the signs that are mentioned in the Quran again and again, like day and night, like the seas, like the food, like all the blessings that we've been blessed with, like water and everything, then we will come to a place of certainty. And then we will have that certainty that the maker of everything is under control. Everything is, I don't have the power control, but everything is under control. And whoever is controlling and making and creating everything has a power that encompasses everything. He knows everything. He knows the past and the future. He has compassion. There is wisdom. Everything has purpose beyond my imagination, beyond what I can fathom. And so I surrender. Now it goes beyond aql, beyond reasoning, the heart, the feelings, because aql cannot fathom all this. Reason cannot. But once it has the evidences, the signs, the indication, then the heart starts feeling, yes, there is compassion. There is the fact that we are being taken care of and sustained and moves the heart. And once the heart appreciates and is grateful, then we start living not from the ego, but from the heart and from the soul, from the spirit. And then we trust. We trust that just because I don't understand the wisdom in something, I don't rebel or object or resist it, because now I know that I am a abd. I know that I am very limited. I know that what I know is so limited that it's ridiculous to claim anything. I'm only given I only know what I'm given, and even that sometimes I forget it. So it's okay not to know the wisdom of everything all the time. What matters is that I know that there is wisdom. That I'm sure of. I don't know what the wisdom is all the time, but I know that there is wisdom, and therefore I choose to surrender. Surrender means I'm okay. I accept someone is taking care of it. And with that surrender, with that peace, I know that the other people are committing justice, but at the end, God is just. And I cannot judge if I've been the victim of injustice when it's only a small part of my life and when I don't know the whole picture. So the believer is more humble. He's trusting, he's surrendering, and he's humble. And so this perspective of the believer makes it easy to be patient when she's weak, and lenient and forgiving and accepting and tolerant with others when she has the power and strength. You have the power, you have the strength, but the believer does not misuse it. Because the believer has that compassion, that forgiving, that comes from the humility of being abd. And the muttaqeen, the God conscious, are described in the Quran as those who pardon others. It's an act of ihsan. We are told, and vie with one another to attain to your Rabb's forgiveness and to a paradise as vast as the heavens and the earth, which has been prepared for the God conscious. Who are these God conscious? Who spend in time of plenty and in time of hardship. Not only when we have a lot, but even in time of hardship. Why? Because I know He is the giver here and now. We don't want to spend in time of hardship, especially because we forget that the source is infinite. Is abundant. I only look at my pocket or my purse, and then I see just few dollars and I panic. Astaghfirullah. So those who spend in time of plenty and in time of hardship and hold in check their anger and pardon their fellow people, because God loves the muhsinin. So they stop their anger and they pardon other people, and that God loves the muhsinin. It means this is an act of ihsan. And you can see that this is an act of ihsan because this is an act of the one who lives with the perspective that everything is an ayah and sees wajhullah everywhere. And that's the definition of a muhsin in the hadith of Jibreel. الذين وسارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. Subhanallah. Just very beautiful. And we are told in another, that was
Surah 3, verse 133.
Surah 3, verse 133 to 135. It carries on, it says, and who, again, there's still the description of those who forgive, who keep their anger and forgive, the God conscious, and who, when they have committed a shameful deed or have otherwise sinned against themselves, remember God and pray that their sins be forgiven. So they forgive others and they pray for themselves to be forgiven. For who but God could forgive sins, and they do not knowingly persist in doing whatever wrong they may have done. So the moment they realize it's wrong, they stop doing it. They ask for forgiveness. The people who ask for forgiveness, it gives two things. One, the humility that everyone can make mistakes, so you become more compassionate and empathize with others. Second, you forgive, because I need forgiveness. I'm asking God to forgive me, then I forgive as well. I love the forgiving, because I feel the need for it. So I understand, even if others don't feel that need, I know that it's because they are not aware of it. But we all need forgiveness, and being forgiven is something beautiful. So we practice it. It's reflecting that name of God, forgiver. We're also told in the Quran, for instance, in 43:89, فَاصْفَحْ عَنْهُمْ وَقُلْ سَلَامٌ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. Bear with them. And before that, we know who is them. They are the disbelievers, the mushriks. Bear with them and say, peace be upon you. For in time, they will come to know. Okay, so they will come to know whether here, if they are open to it, if they're obstinate and they resist it, they will come to know on the day of in Akhirah, on the day of judgment, the day of resurrection. As far as we are concerned, peace. Keep the peace with everyone. And in Surah Shura, which is Surah 42, we're told, starting from Ayah 30, now whatever calamity may befall you on Judgment Day will be an outcome of what your own hands have wrought. Although He pardons much, God pardons much, but if still He pardoned all that and still there is something, know that it is from you in this life and in the next, because it says whatever calamity may befall you will be an outcome of what your own hands have. And you cannot elude Him on earth, and you will have none to protect you from God and none to bring you help, to help you. And among His ayat are the ships that sail like floating mountains through the seas. If He so wills, He stills the wind, and then they lie motionless on the sea's surface. And herein, behold, there are ayat, indeed, for all those who are wholly patient in adversity and deeply grateful to God. The fact that the wind is as God's command, a wind that can make huge ship stop, or huge ship can even it moves them. This is something, power and wisdom and knowledge and balance and harmony and many things are going on here. But they are signs for whom? لَآيَاتٍ لِكُلِّ صَبَّارٍ شَكُورٍ. Those who are totally patient in adversity and deeply grateful. Or else He may cause them to perish because of what they have wrought. He pardons, and still He pardons much. And let them know that those who call our ayat in question, that for them there is no escape. And remember that whatever you are given is but for the passing enjoyment of life in this world, whereas that which is with God is far better and more enduring. It shall be given to all who attain to faith, though all those who have believed and in their Rabb place their trust. So you believe, if we truly believe, then we are going to have tawakkul. We will trust God. If we can't trust, it means go back and check your belief. You don't truly believe in what you claim to believe, so it's okay. It just means go back and make istighfar and check it. Make sure you truly believe in what you claim you believe. And who shun, so those who have believed and place their trust on their Rabb, and who shun the most heinous sins and abominations, and who, whenever they are moved to anger, readily forgive. وَإِذَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. On the spot, can you see? وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. Whenever they are moved to anger, readily on the spot they forgive. Subhanallah, because they live in a different dimension. They have extra dimensions, the dimensions of the names of God, the dimensions of wisdom, of compassion in every event. And so, yes, they are moved to anger, but that anger is there to teach us something, not to attack the other party or do the same thing, retaliate in the same way. And who respond to the call of their Rabb and are constant in prayer, and whose rule is consultation among themselves and shura, and who spends on others out of what we provide for them as sustenance, and who, whenever tyranny afflicts them, defend themselves. So they are not like we forgive everything, therefore everything can bully us. There is a balance between the two. So you don't bully, but you don't let yourself be bullied. But there is a difference between defending yourself from a place of the heart, a place of compassion and forgiveness, and retaliating with anger. But remember that an attempt at requiting evil may too become an evil. So it says when you are defending yourself, be careful, because requiting evil may also become an evil. Hence, whoever pardons and makes peace, his reward rests with God. So always, if it is possible to forgive, we always need the believer who trusts God will always choose to forgive. Why? Because as I am seeking my right back, it's very easy to get entangled into that evilness and competition and rivalry. And so he says, then whoever pardons and makes peace, his reward rests with God, for truly he does not love evil wrongdoers. Yet indeed, as for any who defend themselves after having been wronged, this is clear, no blame whatever attaches to them, but we'll see what's coming. Blame attaches but to those who oppress other people and behave outrageously on earth, offending against all right. For them, there is grievous suffering in store. But still, if one is patient in adversity and forgives, this, behold, is indeed something to set one's heart open. After all this, you are being wronged, you are being oppressed, still, like, you have the right to defend yourself, but keep that this is the last resort. Not at the first when you think something, when you make sure you are truly oppressed, truly this is injustice, then you think of ways of defending yourself, not in the same way, not oppressing, not by oppressing, not through tyranny. Subhanallah, it's just this forgiveness is very important, and it comes naturally, I would say, it comes together with that state of mind, with that state of being, a abd who lives in awareness of the rububiyyah, who sees the rububiyyah activity everywhere, who sees wajhullah everywhere. It means everything is an ayah for that person. So for that person to be patient, to forgive becomes easy, because, and for that anger to immediately even you feel anger, readily you forgive, because that anger is there to tell me that this is something unwanted. For instance, this is an injustice, but it doesn't mean that immediately react in the same way. Otherwise, there will be then no difference between the just and the unjust. And it is not about only, it is right, it is correct, but it is not only about saying one day in Akhirah, God will requite them, therefore now I should control myself and stop, I shouldn't get angry, or I should control myself. It's not only about that, because if I am still angry, still seeing the event as injustice, it means I am not connecting it with my Rabb. It means I'm not seeing the Rububiyyah in it. I'm not seeing that aspect to it that looks to Akhirah, that looks to the divine names. So where is this Akhirah coming from? So I will never have yaqeen, certainty in Akhirah. I need to make shahada and witness the indications, the evidences, the ayat of Akhirah in everything here and now. Otherwise, it will be just a claim and a hope, maybe hoping that something will happen that day. But I have no certainty. If we don't have that certainty, we cannot trust. If I don't perceive the world as it is described in the Quran, then I miss the whole thing. Everything else becomes claims. It's like in medicine. I can be healing people, just trying to stop the symptoms from appearing. So someone is coughing, cough syrup, but I never investigate what the cough is indicating. So I do never go to the root causes. Of course, in medicine, modern medicine, you go beyond the cough, but for instance, the cough is because of, I don't know, tuberculosis, but tuberculosis could be, for some it could be poverty, but some people are not poor, they have very good, they eat well and everything, but because they are under stress. So I've seen people who were wealthy, and I've seen a case of tuberculosis, and it was totally psychological. That person went through very hard time and suddenly went to hospital, and they said it was a case of tuberculosis. I couldn't believe it. So that cough, modern medicine says it's because of tuberculosis, but actually there is something even beyond that, that why this person who lives well, who eats well, who is wealthy and has a very healthy diet and everything, suddenly gets tuberculosis when she didn't go anywhere, she didn't meet any other people with tuberculosis, was not because it doesn't look beyond. So it's like that. We say, okay, on the day of resurrection, in Akhirah, God will take care of it. So now, control yourself. We do it 1, 2, 3 times, and it doesn't work, because you have to really, really be certain that truly God will do that. And how many people will be certain when they have no evidences? And the evidence is in the here and now, in the event itself. And if I had that evidence, I wouldn't have recourse to this reasoning, because I wouldn't be primarily busy with the other person. I would see the wisdom and the purpose of the event, and then I will interact with the other party, the other person, whatever it is, with that consciousness, with that knowing, with that trust, with that certainty.
Sister Yamina,
clear, but I think it's very, very important. And when we read, like in this Surah 42, from 30 to 43, it's clearly not just about forgive now because God will take care of them later, which is correct, but you can't do it just because of that. It's not enough incentive. Yes, Isra?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's very interesting the way you have been suggesting at verse 14. And I have never thought of it that way, in the sense of forgiveness relating to ayat, that you're able to forgive somebody because you see that person not as hurting you primarily, but as a person who's a sign for you, placed in your path. That's really interesting, and it does really connect well with the next verse, verse 15, which we are about to go into. And it's also interesting that earlier there was very strong passages about suffering and shameful suffering for those who deny, who turn away. And I wasn't expecting a couple verses down this kind of advice about forgiveness, because these are the same people. Just looking outwardly, of course, these people are also relevant to us. It's not about externalizing and labeling people, but in the first level, these are the same people. These are the people who turn away from the signs, and they are deserving shameful suffering. And then a couple verses down, these are the people whom I should be forgiving. I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting this, how the Quran is so dynamic,
also, Can you also see that now we understand how we have been suffering whenever we did not live with that perspective of everything is an ayah, because we are all about how everything is against us, how we blame everything. Whenever we are unhappy, we blame everything else, everyone else. It's just the opposite of when, for the believer. The believer doesn't blame. There is nothing to blame anyways.
And just one second, Sister Alia has had her hand up for a while. I also wanted to...
yes, inshallah.
Sister Alia, you are not... You're muted. We are not hearing you. Okay, maybe then in the meantime, Sister Esma, you can share.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, the grief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us not to take it seriously. I think it's very important. It's training our parasympathetic nervous system, because what happens emotionally, if somebody says things which are offensive, so we might spend a lot of emotional energy on that, thinking about it. Why did he say that? Brooding about it, and it's a waste of time plus energy. And so that's why I think this is a very important point. It's not only for the non-believers in general too, not to take some things just to develop a thick skin. For if somebody says bad, then it's their own soul they are affecting, and we should not take offense and waste our time and emotional energy. And like, the Prophet ﷺ used to, in the Quran, there are so many places, 2 or 3 places, where the Prophet ﷺ used to grieve so much. Why didn't these non-believers, why don't they understand? And so much so that the Quran says you might kill yourself in grief. So it can affect emotionally, and people can go into...
But that's different, Sister Esma. That's because of his compassion. He, like, you want goodness for everyone around you, rather than ours is more like, here it's about forgiving when you feel like angry at something. But there it was like he was so sorry, so sad. Imagine the people closest to you, and they are not benefiting from something that, from the guidance of the Quran, which I personally believe is something like the best thing that could happen to any one of us in their life.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
And you have someone who is very close, who you care for, and they don't appreciate the value of the guidance. So you feel very sad.
Yeah. So this one is also the same situation. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, why don't people use their aqal, their, iman and certainty and all that, and on simple things like ayahs, where we are all surrounded with ayahs, and still they don't get it. So this is very serious, and you sometimes think, how come they don't get it? Because on the day of judgment it will be too late. And that gives a lot of, to me, I mean, when I was contemplating these verses, I felt so bad that I wish if I could help somebody out, and each other to save from this consequence, dreadful consequence.
Then we can make istighfar for them, forgive them, and for istighfar for them, because that's exactly what he's saying. We cannot say, how didn't get it? If I say, Alhamdulillah, like, how did I get it? It's a gift from God. So please, God, can you share this gift to these people? So I wish them to be open to receive the gift as well.
Right. You feel sometimes that
there is more humility, more like... so you get, the more we understand how big a gift it is to us, the more there is humility, and the more we empathize with others, and we're more compassionate.
Right.
So Alia? No? Alia is not. Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking as you're talking is that it's easy sometimes, maybe it's not easy, but I can see where you can forgive other people and see events happening to you through others as messages. But how do you forgive yourself? I find that to be the more challenging one, especially when you think that you have caused something to happen. Whether you caused something to happen to you.
We ask for forgiveness. Have you... what did it say in the ayah that we just read? They ask for forgiveness. We don't forgive. It's not because who can forgive. We can forgive only as far as our right is concerned. But as far as everything else, we make istighfar for ourselves and for others. But we ask for forgiveness.
I think, I understand it. I just think it's a process, especially when you think that you're causing something, or it's because of you something is happening, or it keeps happening. And
okay, just a second. Can you give like a simple example?
Any example?
Something very simple.
Maybe someone is sad because you are, or you made someone in your family sad because things that happened, or
okay,
things that you told them. Now you see that you...
Just a second now. First, I'll take it to ourselves. If I am a believer and I understand everything is an ayah, I can never say people make me sad. So I will apply it to others later, but I have to first apply to myself. And we said, the first thing, I said, people, the believers who have that perspective of everything is an ayah, that what the Quran teaches us is there is no need, we do not need to blame anyone or anything. Why? Because no one first has the power to make me sad. Even if they do everything in their power to make me sad, I choose to be sad or not according to how I interpret what they are doing. My sadness could be feeling guilty, or my sadness could be I want them to be better, or whatever it is. But it's me who decides to be sad. Some people are not sad, they are angry. Right? If someone is trying to make me sad,
I guess
I'll get angry. So
I guess forgiveness comes from like this nagging thing in your head that tells you are guilty, and
okay, justice, there are always two alternatives. One is truly I've done something, I wronged myself and the other person. I'll always take it as someone did it to me, because the other person, we don't know how that person is going to take it. But if I solve it in me as a believer, then I can easily view it when it is done from me onto the other person. So someone wronged me. The person did something wrong. The brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers did something wrong. But as far as Yusuf alayhi salam is concerned, he's not the victim of injustice, because he is aware that everything is taqdeer, is divinely decreed. It does not make the brothers less wrongful. If they feel guilty about it, it's their good. And it will do them good only if that guilt leads them to stop, to reflect on what they've done and to take a decision not to do it again. But it could be a guilt, for instance, the other person didn't wrong me, the other person wanted to help me, but I'm moody, I didn't like it, I was angry that day, and I said, for instance, I said something nasty. The other person didn't do, so the other person can still, if that person is a believer, can still take a lesson from it, that, okay, I cannot help people beyond what they are open to it. I cannot force. Helping is not by force, right? You cannot make me eat something that's healthy or beneficial for me unless I'm sick and you're the doctor, maybe. Even then, I have to sign the papers that I accept the treatment. But you can't treat me by force, even though you know that it's beneficial and that I need it. So, okay, I will learn not to interfere in other people's life, but give them the choice first, because we all want to have the choice, even if we are using our power of choice wrongfully. So the moment I learn from that guilt, the guilt is not to just beat ourselves up. The guilt is an ayah again, interfering with everything, engaging with everything is an ayah. If I feel guilty, I stop and say, what is it that is making me feel guilty? There is something wrong. Okay, I make istighfar for it. I ask for forgiveness from the other party and from God. And I take the decision and may ask for help to change that, whatever I'm doing, that is making me feel guilty. But there is still istighfar, and there is still asking for forgiveness. And if it's done unto me, I forgive. If the other people don't forgive me, what can I do? I go and ask for forgiveness and ask Allah to forgive me and open their hearts so they also forgive me. And if they are, well, some people are not reasonable and they are not forgiving, although you ask for forgiveness, you said, I am sorry. What can you do? We are not responsible for other people. We have too much on our plate anyways for making istighfar for ourselves. And when we make istighfar for ourselves, it always comes with all the people around us because we are always in interaction with everyone.
Sister Yamina, one more thing, I just was going through these verses. There could be one more explanation, because what happens, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, woe to each sinful dealer in falsehoods, maybe this is about them, even though they are criticizing and not rejecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ayahs, but since we are so much attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it hurts us indirectly if they reject those things. So like, if you love somebody so dearly, if somebody says bad things to that person, you get definitely affected. So I think it is that sense also that it does have an impact on us too, when the kuffar reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sign.
That's easier to forgive because it doesn't affect us directly. So it's all of it, as I said in the beginning, all of it. What you said, including even when actually you are being harmed, as we are told in Surah Al-Shura. Even when you are harmed, actually, you are the victim of tyranny, still you can defend yourself, but if there is room, opportunity to pardon, to forgive, then it is always better. Because repelling evil as you are repelling evil, you may fall into evil yourself. So as Imam Ali radiallahu anh, he says, I prefer to be 1,000 times the victim of wrong than wronging once. So if I am in doubt, I stop.
This is beautiful, yes, very nice, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. So next, in Ayah 15, we are told, whoever does what is just and right, does it for his own good. And whoever does evil, does it to his own hurt. And in the end, unto your Rabb, you will all be brought back. من عمل صالحا فلنفسه ومن أساء فعليها ثم إلى ربكم ترجعون. So whoever does good, he will gain the benefits thereof, here and now and in Akhirah as well. And the here and now is always related, connected to Akhirah. There is no here and now without Akhirah. As I always say, it's not after I died that Akhirah starts. Because our life is not like suspended. One day we die and then everything ends. No. Yesterday is not here. Last year is not here. This morning is not here. So as we are passing, as it's flowing, they are parallel worlds. They are not one after the other. And so here and now, we have that sense of akhirah. And everything is pointing to that. All the ayat are pointing, indicating that reality. So whoever does good, he will gain the benefits. Whoever commits evil, he will reap the consequences. And the consequences are important. We've been from 7 to 9, we're all about the consequences of disbelief in the ayat, not only in God, because if I do not interact with everything as an ayah, my belief in God is only taqleed. That God is not the God of the Quran. Is not the God who creates here and now. It would be like, if I don't see anything as an ayah, I live in a bubble exactly, I view everything exactly as a non-believer, but I claim that there is an akhirah. But if that akhirah doesn't change who I am, how I see everything, then that's not called belief. Belief is not that. If I believe, if I am sitting somewhere right now and I believe there is a fire, all the alarms is on, I can smell the smoke, I can see the flames, and I still don't move, I don't believe there is a fire. So there is hearing the alarm, the ilm al-yaqeen, the certainty of knowing, and then seeing the smoke, smelling the smoke and seeing the fire or the smoke, ayn al-yaqeen, the certainty of seeing, and there is smelling the smoke, getting suffocated, getting hot, feeling the heat of the fire, ayn al-yaqeen, the certainty of being, of actually experiencing it. But in any case, there is certainty. And it makes us take action, we move. But if I'm still sitting here and my belief in akhirah doesn't transform my life, then the belief is still information, it's still knowledge, but it's still in my mind, has not settled into the heart yet. So these expressions that whoever does right is for himself is repeated in the Quran. For instance, whoever gives thanks, he gives thanks for his own good. And whoever is ungrateful, then indeed God is self-sufficient, praiseworthy. And he who purifies himself, then he purifies himself solely for his own benefit. And to God is the return, we are told in another area. And whoever accepts the guidance, it is only for himself. And whoever goes astray, he goes astray merely for his own loss. For instance, all these are repeated in the Quran. So these ayats, these messages, reminds us that divine guidance is a blessing, a gift, and it is a service rendered unto us, unto humankind. It's not like, oh, now this divine guidance, the Quran, I have to follow it. It's like a burden. Then we didn't get what divine guidance is at all. Divine guidance is a gift. It is a service. It's like, I was thinking, Sharia is like, one meaning of Sharia is path. And it's like, I want to drive in a field without roads. And when I see roads and signs, we say, what is all these limitations? You have to go only in the road. You have to follow the signs, the lights. Okay, go on. Those who don't want to follow the Sharia, it's like in the emotional, spiritual realm. They want to even in social interaction at all levels, it's like, I want to live in the jungle, to drive in the jungle. How much can you drive? Even walking, even if we don't say we are driving, even walking is difficult. Even for walking, we need paved paths. So it is a service, it's a service. And so when we accept the divine guidance, when we follow and live by it, we are the ones who benefit from this gift in this world and in the next. And if we don't accept, and if we don't follow this divine guidance, we have no one to blame for the consequences. And the consequences, we are told and we can guess, are really grievous. They are very serious. And we can even have a glimpse of it, as Andrea was saying, here and now, when we are not in that state of connectedness, of belief and trust in God, and that perception of everything as ayah and engaging everything as ayah, we fall into fear, into anxiety, into all kinds of hellish states, which are just small seeds of what hell is about. And that's for the ones who reflect, those who have an open heart. That's enough. We don't want to go in that path. So it's those ayat becomes really something to help us get back in case we lose our way. And still, the requital of good and bad is not equal. In Surah Al-Ghafir, meaning the forgiver, which is Surah 40, in ayah 39 and 40, we are told this worldly life is but a brief enjoyment. This, we need to remember this again and again. Whereas behold, the life to come is the home abiding. And it doesn't mean that we will not live in this world or we're waiting for death. We don't have to wait for death because look, the beginning, we started at 8 something. It's not here anymore. It's already going. But I have to live with this consciousness and find that aspect of everything that look to that Darul Qarar, that home abiding, that Akhirah. And it says that anyone who has done a bad deed will be requited with no more than the like thereof. One bad deed, one requital. Whereas anyone, be it male or female, who has done righteous deeds and is a believer, all such will enter paradise wherein they shall be blessed with good beyond all reckoning, بغير حساب, beyond any our imagination. So one bad, you will get one bad. But if you do one good and you're a believer, then the outcome is not like, because it's not you did something good, but haphazardly it happens. No, you intentionally as a believer, you do good, then you will have endless paradise, endless goodness. So they're not the same, they're not equal. The results are not equal. I think I'll stop, we'll stop here. I was hoping that we get to ayah 17 or 18, but alhamdulillah. Maybe if we can, if anyone wants to share what we learned so far, not only from this, from today's, but so far from this surah, inshallah. It'd be nice to hear.
Yes, thank you for asking this, Yamina. I really would like the participants, and mashallah, there are 8 of us, to summarize the lesson, because the lesson is very clear as we're listening to it. So who would like to share? Mashallah, every time someone brings up a new perspective when they share.
Yes, just a few points about the ayahs, because I believe the main theme of this surah is just ayahs. If we can get one point, it's just contemplation of ayahs, and we just pass by them and don't take it seriously. But the point that the reason why we have these ayahs are that, first of all, this is all we have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels are not going to come in front of us. We have to use our akhal, and through these ayahs only we have to come to al-haq. So that is a very important thing that I have found out after studying Quran, for the last few years, that the reflection of the ayahs is the most, we should not take it for granted. We should really, and it's not even that if we have become Muslims and now we have believed in ayahs and we should just, not think about it. Actually, I was thinking today that if we go deep and keep digging in these ayahs, our iman increases by it. It's not just, saying that, yes, we believe in these ayahs and that's it. But we have to constantly think of, dig, whatever is happening, whether it's event or anything, these are all ayahs, and we have to indulge in them, and that's how our iman will increase. There's no other way. I mean, Allah's words are there, and then we have to, go deep down into these ayahs and increase our iman, and there is no other way except this. So this is very important for me, and I didn't know, when we used to study Quran, we never thought about these things, but I guess as this, whether it is scientific ayahs or Quranic ayahs, and they're very important, and they are the only things we have, and through them we will have to connect the dots and come to the al-haq, and there's no other way out. I mean, the Prophet, obviously the Prophet is also involved because of the Quran and the Quranic ayahs and all that, but this is all we have. So that's why Quran emphasizes it all the time. So I think that's what I've been concentrating on the last 2-3 weeks, these ayahs.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Esma, for highlighting once again the importance of heeding and paying attention to these ayat. Inshallah, we'll be among those who do so. And for me to reiterate again, I'm really struck by this forgiveness in the verse, as I mentioned earlier. And one thing I was thinking these days, I've been reading a bit on joy in belief, how belief and joy are connected, and then the more I was reading, I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. When you look at the world from a belief perspective, I mean, we fall short of it, or we forget, we are living unawareness. But when you get aware of it, it's so beautiful. Belief is really giving you joy, and you get the best of this world. Inshallah, more to come. And then I felt intense kind of sadness and almost frustration that so many of the popular discourse around us presents the opposite message, that religion is boring and it's spoils the fun. The real fun is without religion. And so there's so much out there, too much is out there in this vein, and I was feeling upset about that as well. And then this, looking at the verse 14, saying that you should forgive those who do not believe in the judgment day or the days of God. It gave me a different perspective. It's interesting that we cannot turn that sadness or concern into this kind of anger that just turns into blame and then stops there. It's just destructive. It's not helpful. But then we're invited to see it as a sign that even the situation of unbelief that's beyond my control, or propaganda for unbelief that's beyond my control, I can see it as a sign. Even that is a sign. And I like the way Sister Yamina put it. God has wisdom, sometimes unfathomable, that sometimes you don't understand necessarily what is exactly the wisdom in allowing this much room for people to say so much nonsense and then to almost brainwash other people. But then verse 14 along with verse 15 was saying nobody's hurting anybody. It's all about your choice, and you're only hurting yourself if you turn away. So, and it's so beautiful because it's not about unleashing this anger, but it's about serving, working towards belief, at the same time with forgiveness, with I can't express maybe, but I just felt that from that perspective, it also spoke to me, in addition to what Sister Yamina was saying about looking at forgiveness in personal relationships. Is there anybody else who wants to share? Oh, Ziba, please go ahead.
I liked the example that you gave. It's a very nice and applicable example. I couldn't get the last point that you made. So the last point that you made, that you wrapped up quickly, was after realizing that God gives this much space to people to share all of that nonsense, your role would be
doing my part, but not turning that
Regardless.
into unleashing into anger, because the next verse is saying, whoever does what's good, what's right, does so for his own good, and whoever does wrong does it for himself. So it's not like this image of some bad people misleading other good people. It's not about that. I do my part. I work for understanding and sharing belief, but I don't leash out in anger to those people who are who are against what I'm saying, or who are against belief, because they may be in a station in their lives, in a couple of years they may be in a better space than I am, and they are a sign. Even though I may say, why are they doing this? I have a role to play. I do my part, but at the end of the day, it's so beautiful that the verse, even after highlighting so strongly that unbelief is very shameful and leads to suffering in this world and the next, the verse comes back to forgiveness of those who seem to be in that space. You do your part. Like it's really beautiful the way the anger is rechanneled and put down. So I had seen. I see Sister Ziba. I saw Sister Ziba's hand, and then Sister Brania. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I wanted, Isra, you have already said what I wanted to say, most of it. But I was thinking, like, it goes so much like what we read today, what's going on around ourselves right now, that we see negativeness everywhere, and then we lose hope. And so that's a big lesson to take away from here, that no, not to lose hope, because if we believe in Allah and the Akhirah, then we have to strive and do our part in wherever we are. And the other thing is forgiveness. It's Allah is asking us to forgive others, so that's a healing for the person who is forgiving itself. Because when we don't forgive, we are hurting ourselves in a very negative way. So that's a big gift if we are able to forgive someone from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was my summary of what I got from today's.
When we are not forgiving, we're stuck in the belief, the misunderstanding, misperception that whatever is happening is the source of it is the other person. So it's a kind of shirki understanding. We forget that yes, the other person wanted it, but it has to be created. And so instead of looking at the creation part of it and what meaning it is bringing to me, how it is helping me on my journey towards the fulfillment of my purpose in life, like Yusuf alayhi salam, all those things were readying him and preparing him for a purpose that was beyond his understanding. He could not have followed and fulfilled the dream, but it was done unto him, through him, for him, because he surrendered and he knew that it was all from God. But when we forget that, then we stuck to the other person. We blame conditions, not only people. We blame the conditions, everything. And it's difficult to forgive, difficult to let go of the anger, or to see the anger itself as the guilty anger, all of them as signs, as ayat. Ayat means bringing messages from the unseen, from God, about the unseen, about God, about Akhirah, about the divine names. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Can we also say that? Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I just wanted to take the time to say I've never, since I've been Muslim, ever really thought about the phrase ayats or ayat. You said ayats, or everything is ayat. That's the first time I've ever really contemplated or heard anything like that. And in giving that some thought over the last time since last week, it makes me more, I feel like more at peace with what, the trials and tribulations we go through in everyday life. And it's because I've been really kind of like angry off and on, and I'm not the type of person who would get angry, but it really is showing you the mercies and the beautifulness that Allah has bestowed on us all, because I never looked at it like that. And now that I do, I find it very, very, very like just soothing and comforting to know that I don't have to worry about anything so long as I do what I'm supposed to strive. Of course, none of us are perfect, but so long as I put my focus on Allah and know that everything happens for a reason. And I always think that if you go to your Lord and you want him to do something for you, I told my kids this coming up, then you have to be forgiving to the person, to the person. So my kids are really like, they're reminders to me now, because it's like, I just can see the blessings so clear. And in this class, I feel so, just blessed to be able to participate in this. I've never studied Quran to this level, but that was just a beautiful thought. And I'm going to try to live looking for everything as is ayat, everything. And that's how I literally take now, everything. So alhamdulillah, and it's just one of the infinite mercies. And I know for sure that Allah wants all of us to make it to Jannah, because he gives us so many opportunities. It's like I'm learning so much everything is coming at me now, and I'm just telling you, there's no reason anyone should fall short, because it's just too many ways you can get to Jannah, too many ways. And I just continue to strive every day and try to, the dua and the fasting, and I haven't been able to make Hajj yet. I pray that I'm invited, but it's just too many ways you can get to Jannah. So may Allah really keep us striving. I know life is tough. I haven't had it easy, but you look at the Prophet's examples, and none of them had it easy as well. So may Allah really help all of us. But it makes me feel more confident that, it said the ones that he loves the most is going to be tested the most. So that whole concept about everything in life is an ayat really, really helped me. So I wanted to say Jazakallah khairan for that.
Alhamdulillah. Life is both tough and at the same time it's beautiful, and it brings lots of joy when we live with that awareness, which is ihsan. And if you, I don't know if you were with us when we went through Surah Yusuf, which introduces it's the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, Joseph, and it is introduced as the most beautiful story. But if you go through it as someone just like superficially looking at it, it looks like an awful story. This child being thrown out, being sold into slavery. Mm-hmm. But when we look at it from Yusuf alayhi salam, from the narration, is always telling us the muhsins, the perspective, how everything is an ayah for him, how everything is from God. Then you start seeing the beauty in everything. It's just so beautiful. Alhamdulillah. So shall we end with a dua, inshallah?
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه إن الله لا يخلف الميعاد ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
جزاك الله كل خير.
جزاكم.
Inshallah, see you next week. And we'd like to also announce that we are about to, inshallah, soon open registration for the winter retreat. And the dates are December 23rd. We'll start on Friday, right after Jummah, and we'll end on Monday, 26th of December, with Dhuhr prayer. So we'll announce once the registration is
December 23rd.
December 23rd, 26th, in the same area that we had last time.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah kulla khair. Inshallah, may it be made easy for everyone, inshallah, to attend and enjoy, inshallah.
Amen. Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.